and welcome to another live. Here we are. I'm in London. Next week I will not be in London, but hopefully I will be doing a live stream because I'll be heading off joining a cruise. More on that in a second. So a couple of housekeeping things before we get going as usual. Thanks everyone for joining. I will try and get through as many questions as I possibly can in the next 60 minutes. If you're watching this afterwards, remember this was a live, so everything's driven by what people asked. And you can, if you watch out, each question that comes up, I bring that up so you can sort of skip forward and so on. So lots of regulars here. Oh, the other thing to say is, those of you who here regularly know is if you can write the word question before a question, that makes it so much easier for me to spot the questions amongst different chat and people saying hello and so on. So let's do a few bits and pieces before I get into the questions, a few housekeeping bits and pieces. As I mentioned, I'm heading off. So next Sunday, I'll actually be heading off to Amsterdam to join a river cruise on Avalon. It's been a long time since I was last on Avalon. I think it was 2019. They currently get some of the best scores within river cruising at the moment, so I'm looking forward to that. So I've booked myself on this trip from Amsterdam to Basel. It's a 7-day cruise, and I'll be reporting on that. Of course, I'll probably be doing some updates to patrons and members. I always do kind of thoughts as I go, but of course there will be full videos to follow, and also on Instagram I'll post stuff. Now I'm planning to, all things going well, to do a live next week from my hotel in Amsterdam. Again, you know, subject to flight delays and stuff, but I should be there in plenty of time for all that. So as I said, just a reminder, write the word question. So let's get stuck in. I'll just get stuck into the questions, say hello to people as you go, because lots of regulars are here. Lou, Hetty, Claudia, Larry Hiker, so many regulars here. So let's go with the question which just popped in just before I went live, which was from Albert. What has been your experiences with travel insurance companies? Do you have any recommendations? So I get asked about insurance quite often. I get asked quite often if I'll do a video about insurance. So I've covered it a little bit. The reason I haven't done a deep dive is that insurance, once you get into this granular thing of travel insurance companies, is a little bit more challenging because travel insurance is very local. And I believe even within some states, it may differ within places like the United States. So the critical thing with travel insurance, Albert, is if you are booking travel insurance, make sure that it includes cruise cover, or as in case of my insurance, I have to add cruise cover. It's not much more, but that's quite important. And you also want to take a travel insurance, or ensure you have travel insurance at the time you book, because then if you need to cancel, you're covered. A lot of people, what they do is they kind of wait till they're about to go on the cruise and they take it out, but they forget they may have to cancel. So also looking at reasons to cancel for any reason, that kind of stuff. So in terms of travel insurance companies, I know a lot of people in the US use Allianz, for example. There is a site which is called tripinsurance.com, where you can actually go and do some search and stuff. In the UK, I use, because I need insurance with existing medical conditions, because I'm in a remission from cancer, so I need cover for that. So I use two companies, Stay Clear and All Clear, but there are, again, some great search engine stuff like Money Supermarket and so on. So that would be my watch out. It is very local, so it's probably worth checking with friends or family locally. But those are the main ones that I hear people talking about. So let's have a look. Mooman here, Jerry and Diane. Mooman here. So Mike and Carrier here, which is good to see you. Did you see the report on damage caused to the seafloor in Antarctica? And do you think we'll see changes there due to the damage they are causing? So for those who haven't seen it, there was a report done, I think, based on the 2023 or 2024 season, or maybe it was 23-24 season. And I can't remember who did the study, where they were looking at the seafloor, where, because obviously what happens with a lot of cruise ships, particularly older cruise ships, is they put down anchors when they are stationary. Now, a lot of the new ships and a lot of the new expedition ships are using more GPS data system, where they actually use kind of, I guess, the thrusters and stuff to stay in place. So I know things like when I was on Seabourn Pursuit, for example, they use that technology. They never put down anchors. So I think, there's always the ongoing discussion around damage to the seafloor from anchors. So I do think we will see more and more pressure on that, because obviously it's not just in Antarctica, it could be in other places, where that is, so particularly anything with kind of coral and stuff. So I think we will see more, and particularly technology. My understanding at the moment is that technology is, I don't know how expensive it is, but it tends to be smaller expedition style ships that seem to have that technology. I don't know if the technology works on the big ships, but I guess the big ships are docking more than tendering. They're not going down to Antarctica. So the big ships definitely do not put down anchor. They do sail by. So I think we will see, the Antarctic IATA, which is sort of monitors and lays down the rules for cruising in Antarctica, has many, many rules, and I'm sure they will address it. I haven't seen their reaction to that yet. They might have made a reaction, but I haven't seen that yet. So I'll definitely keep on top of that, because I think it's very interesting, and obviously it's the right thing to do. PPPJ, if I want to celebrate my 60th birthday or retirement at some castle, I can get an event planner to do all the work. I just have to show up. Is it the same on a cruise ship? So in reality, it's not quite the same, but it depends how you want to celebrate it. So I guess you're saying that, laying on parties and all that sort of stuff. So if you were cruising on a cruise ship in a suite, for example, where you have a butler, butlers can arrange cocktail parties and parties, that kind of stuff. But you can also work with the ship. So, the ship, if you talk through, I guess, probably the best place to talk would be through the hotel director, through the purser's office or guest services, and to find what packages they offer. Now, you will also see, depending on your cruise line, sometimes you can do that in advance. So they do, often many of them have packages. They tend to be much more wedding packages, renewal of vow packages, rather than birthday packages, but some do. A lot of them will offer things where you can order birthday cakes, that kind of stuff. But if you're looking to have a specific venue, you may find there are costs associated with that. But if you're using an event planner, that's going to be the case. So the best thing to do, PPPJ, is if you want to do a birthday and define what you want to do, is through your travel agent, or if you're booking directly, talk to them about what they offer and what the costs associated that with. That's number one. Number two, the second thing to do is, if you're planning to celebrate a 60th birthday and lots of friends and family are coming on that, also look at what you can get as a group deal. Now, some cruise lines, again, it tends to be more focused around weddings, but I suspect they could probably turn that into a birthday package. They will offer different incentives. So if you've got a certain amount of people, they will build in some more discounts, or what they normally do is give, for so many berths booked, they will give you a cabin at no cost. So, you can obviously spread that cost across the other cabins, or you can take the cabin yourself. So the numbers vary a little bit, but it can be as low as 8 cabins or 8 berths, depending on what it is. And what they then do is they build in what is called like gap points, which you can then allocate to certain activities. So like a cocktail party, which effectively will be your birthday party. So it does differ a little bit by line, but certainly the other thing to do is, if you literally just Google something like group cruise birthday and the cruise line that you're interested in, you might find some of those PDFs with those details come up. Larry's here's Tom's here. Good to see that. So as you know, last week, a couple of people asked me about recommendations for different travel agents. I do have travel agents in the UK, the one I use, Sarah, in Australia, Canada, and the US of A. And I put a link to the article that has those in there. I just want to write the word questions so I don't miss those. Michael, can I bring a service dog on a cruise? Generally speaking, you can. However, there are quite a few restrictions. They clamp down, some cruise lines, on the type of dog. So they did clamp down, for example, on emotional support dogs, many cruise lines. But most cruise lines, you can bring a service dog. Obviously, they have to be arranged in advance because they have to make specific arrangements. They will do arrangements around an area where the dog can obviously do their business, as it were, and so on. You need to work with the special needs team. Most cruise lines have a special needs team where they look at both service dogs and obviously other accessibility and so on needs. So generally speaking, you can. Some may restrict the number of dogs that they allow on at any time, and they do have rules around what you can and can't do with the dog. There's certain harnesses they have to have. A certain type of harness has to have service dog signage and that sort of stuff on it. And then some of them have restrictions around dining and not dining. So what a lot of them will do, for example, is they will, because you've worked in advance, they will have a table in the main dining room, which is a little bit out of the way or near the main entrance, because some people get a little bit, don't like having dogs in dining areas or whatever. So they try and work around place which is convenient, both not as putting the dog in the way, not stressing out the dog or whatever. Although I guess service dogs are pretty well trained to deal with loads of situations. So yes is the short answer, Michael, but it takes a bit of planning and working with them. IMG, did they change the cruise port in Barcelona? No longer near the city? No. The terminals are right within the center of the city. They've just recently opened the MSC one. There's another one being built there. There was some pressure or discussion that the council in Barcelona was going to try and dial back a little bit on approval of one of the terminals not built. But no, they're right there in the center, within sort of a bit of a walk to Ramblas, but near the Ramblas thing. Barbara, good afternoon from Canada. Do you have a few tips for Transpacific cruises? I'm going from Vancouver to Sydney. I don't, but I will have relatively soon. So I'm doing, well, that's not quite what you're talking, from Vancouver to Sydney, but I'm doing, in August, I'm doing my first sort of reposition where I'm going from Anchorage, well, obviously the port is Seward, and then going kind of across the top through into Japan. And in fact, I've also been looking at some other ones around that because that itinerary appeals to me quite a lot. So I don't yet, but I will have. The one thing I would say, based on some of the preparation that I've done for that, I haven't done a lot of preparation for that, is following people who do it. They talk, particularly if you're doing that, I'm guessing you're going around Japan and down way, I'm guessing. You may be going, unless you're doing the Hawaii kind of route down way, I would have thought so. Anyway, if you're going over the kind of through the Japan and way down, people do talk a lot about rough seas, choppy seas. So being prepared for that. Obviously, there's quite a lot of sea days. Like my trip is actually 3 weeks. I think we have 6 sea days there, international dateline stuff. The thing that I haven't, so you're being ready for sea days, particularly if you're on, lines will add on extra stuff, but you need to also have a plan for yourself, things you want to do, read, watch, whatever, for that. The other thing which I don't know yet, because I was thinking about this today, is the time difference change is enormous. Because when if I go, like I'm leaving, say, Anchorage and stuff, it's about an 8-9 hour time difference behind the UK, but Japan is 8 hours ahead of the UK. So there's this big kind of time shift thing, I guess, happens around the international dateline and stuff. So how to handle with all that and how the ship handles that. But I will have many more, unless you're going much earlier or at the same time with me, that I don't have many. So people do have those things as well. Let's have a look. There's a statement. Well, the question, James, thanks, you've just saved about half on a 21-day Oceania cruise, about $6,000 or to use stating or track cruise price for discounts. Well, that's brilliant to hear. I love it. I get a lot of messages. Most, probably about 80% of them, people who had success. I get quite a few people have pushed and pushed, and lines have said, no, the price you book is the price you pay. So whether we add new perks or things, tough luck. So I got, in fact, I need to reply to an email yesterday from someone in Fred Olsen that had success about a year ago with this, and I was hitting a bit of a brick wall. But it's definitely worth tracking. It's definitely worth trying and trying different angles, and even trying more than once if you get a knockback the first time. A couple of new faces here, which is great. Steinwald Matchen there. Let's have a look. Bobby, would you give Santorini a miss and stay on the boat in August? I saw there'll be 4 other ships on the port today. Also, Greece in August too hot for my moustache. It's very hot in August, absolutely. So it could be a little bit hot, so be ready for that. Santorini is such a great place, though, but you're right, it could be absolutely rammed. My little tip for Santorini is worth getting off and seeing it if you can, but it is, part of it can be like wall to wall. What I did, the last time I went to Santorini was not long after kind of COVID stuff, and there was only a few ships, and so it was beautiful. It was fantastic. We can get into restaurant stuff. But the time before that, when there was a bunch of ships in, what we actually did, now you may be able to do this with the cruise line, Bobby, but what we did, we didn't book it, but we got the tender, because obviously you have to tendered into Santorini. Then there, at the pier side, there's a company, and I don't know the name, there is only one there, that offers boat and bus combination trips. And what you do is you then go on a nice little double-decker open top boat, a little 10-degree kind of boat, and you sail past. You get great views of all the houses right on the top, and it goes into the other key city town on Santorini, which I think is Ola, something like that. And then you get a little bit of time to explore there. Then they have a bus, so it's very nice. You arrive there, walk up there. It's a bit of a steep walk up, but you get to see that part, which many people don't do. Now, that's where most people go a lot for the sunsets, people are staying overnight. But then they have a bus, which takes you from there into the main part of Santorini that most of the tourists will be. That's where there's more kind of tourist shops, but you get to see that great view. So I would obviously gauge it a little bit, but I would do that. What I would also, though, say, Bobby, I don't know how fit you are or whatever, but I would then walk down. It's quite a long walk down. There is a cable car that goes down. If it's lots of ships in, the queues will be enormous. They will be really long. You'll wait for ages. So I'd actually just have a nice walk on the way down. There are donkeys that go, but I try to discourage people from using donkeys. They look really kind of, I don't want to say badly treated. They just look they don't look very happy and not very nice. But so it's not a bad walk because it's downhill. So that would be my kind of tip for that. Because if you're going to Santorini, you sort of want to be able to tick that off. Now, obviously, what's happened with Santorini is they have introduced their new tax, which a couple of the other islands will do. And if you're going at that July, August time, it's probably going to be about 20 euros. It fluctuates based on the time of year. So, Bobby, what you need to check is what some of the lines are saying is they will add that onto your onboard account if you get off the ship. If you don't get off the ship, they won't charge you. So just also when you're on the ship, understand how that fee has been done. I think it's unlikely that lines will absorb. The more up-end lines probably may absorb it because you're paying so much anyway. Here's a question. I have been asked this before, and I gave a probably not very good answer, but I will attempt to answer this. So Scruffio, which is one cruise port you hated the most and would never go back to, even if you were paid, and why did you hate it? I think there's not a port that I've hated enough that I would never go back. There's some that I don't feel particularly enthusiastic about going back to, but I think probably the one port that I didn't really enjoy, and it's partly because of bad planning, is you went to Colombo in Sri Lanka, and we hadn't really planned anything, and we were sort of going to self-explore, realized actually it's a really bad idea to do that. Their excursions were kind of full, and it wasn't a very nice port. There was nothing to do in the surrounds or whatever. I haven't got a great enthusiasm to go back there, partly because I think it's calmed down now, but there was then lots of issues and troubles in Sri Lanka, which I think has calmed down because I see cruise ships going there. So hating it was because it wasn't very nice. There was nothing you could do. Because I like to self-explore as much as I possibly can, unless it's really far away. I hadn't really planned it. So when I look at itineraries, again, because I was looking at a very nice itinerary, because I want to do a little bit more of India and stuff, and it's quite hard to find cruises that do that. And all of them call into Colombo. I think the other thing I would say is quite a few of the Mediterranean ports, unless you've got plans, are not very nice. So if you go to something like La Spezia, for example, there's not a lot to do there unless you do the full-on, go to Florence, go to Pisa kind of stuff. I'll have a better think and see if there are kind of others that I do. Yes, a couple of people, Warren talking about is in San Antonio, Texas. I've been following that terrible flash flood situation with the girls, I guess, still missing from the holiday camp, and quite a few people have lost their lives, which it sounds pretty horrific. So like the river went up 26 feet in an hour or something, which is pretty horrible. Mo, now I don't know if I can answer this or not, but I'll have a look. Do you think these huge ships will spoil it for all cruise lines docking in certain ports? Well, it's interesting because there's a couple of things going on, Mo. I guess, obviously there is a big push in quite a few places to reduce tourism generally because of the sense, certainly post-shutdown, COVID shutdowns and lockdowns. and restrictions on travel, people seem to be traveling more than ever before. And so many places are pushing back, particularly those that have had big growth in Airbnb. So a lot of the issues in Venice, for example, at one time, because people feel there's not a lot of accommodation for locals to live there anymore. They also live on the mainland, but in places like Barcelona, Seville, and so on. So they have pushed back. Now, it's interesting because at the same time, a lot of those ports are saying we also want to pull back on cruise tourism. Although from a public perspective, it's quite interesting. The main push is against land-based tourism, but the more administrations are looking at more at cruise ships, partly because I think they want to have fewer, more up market, if that's the like. They want people maybe higher spending stuff. So we saw the bit of a PR stunt by the mayor of Nice a couple of days ago, which got on a little boat and went sailing out, shouting at, trying to board a Royal Caribbean ship, saying that they have restrictions now on the number of people can come into Nice, and that ship was over it, even though they had got the approval and stuff. You've got Cannes talking about restricting the number, everything from Bora Bora to French Polynesia to Seville to Dubrovnik. They're all restricting. So I think you will see definitely, I think the trend is into lines looking at controlling the number of people who come off, partly because a lot of them argue that there's not enough money spent by passengers in port. That's then disputed a lot by some of the traders. So, for example, one of the reasons that some places, including Juneau and other places, have had a big pushback in terms of some of the restrictions, is local businesses argue that actually it's really having fewer passengers is bad for business. So I think we will see the answer somewhere. I think the challenge will also be that many of these big ships will struggle to get into ports, which is why I think we're seeing a big trend into more and more cruise private islands, cruise private places, and so on. So it's quite a complicated thing, but I find it interesting. To your point, Rose, ships are getting bigger and bigger, and ports are wanting smaller and smaller. And somewhere there's going to have to be the right answer. Rhonda, I have not taken the train from Oslo to Bergen, but I'm trying to think. Someone recently were talking about doing that, and some people have done that. I don't think Rosemary's here today. I feel like Rosemary did it, so I haven't done that. I've heard some very good things about it. I know where I heard who'd done it. I think some patrons were overseas people on Paul and Carol's cruise. They had done it and they said it was fantastic, but I haven't done it. So let me know what it's like once you have done it. Have a great time on that. Let's have a look. Hell's Bell 16. On our last celebrity cruise, we thought there'd been a real decline in quality. Are you seeing any return to better quality as the industry recovers from COVID losses? So this is actually quite a good setup for a video which I've just finished. In fact, this morning I recorded the voiceover too. So I have been back on many of these cruise lines recently, and I do have more lined up. So I've got a more celebrity, Holland America, and so on lined up. But I have been back on many of the lines. I actually just made a video which is looking at the 5 premium lines in this category. So that's obviously Princess, Celebrity, Holland America, Cunard, and Virgin, the 5 sort of main premium in that category, defined in the category. Disney's sort of in there as well, but I didn't focus on Disney because I think that's a bit of an outlier. And I dive into what I think they're doing well and not doing well. So particularly it's interesting on Celebrity, I'm seeing both in reviews, talking to people, more mixed views around what people feel the quality of food is on the newer ships like Edge versus the Solstice class, a little bit more kind of variety. But the cruise lines have all, no matter which category they're in, have all looked to kind of reduce food costs. So some of them have done that by reducing the number of items. They've looked at a lot of food waste, for example. Carnival quoted how much money they've made on food waste. I personally think Celebrity food I think post-COVID was okay. So certainly when my last Celebrity cruise towards the end of last year, it was actually my group cruise. I thought the food was good, and people were kind of very positive on that. So I think the industry is really looking at the whole issue of food. Food costs one of the biggest things, but I think a lot of them have revamped food. But there's definitely tighter menus and so on. But I think they're all doing pretty good. Princess food again has been elevated. That it suffered coming out of COVID. It definitely has improved. A lot of them have got new people in, like Princess Hannah America, worked with Rudy Soderman, sorry. Let's have a look. See the world. Is there a cruising tier for expedition as there is for other types of cruising like ocean, mass market? Yeah. So I actually did a video a couple of months ago, which is looking at this exact topic, and in partnership with Polar Routes and Martin Johnson, we've created a PDF which has pretty much all of the expedition cruise lines and how they stacked and how they compare. So yes is the answer. And in that PDF, which I'm just making a note, I'll put a link in the notes of this at the end. So I'm just make a little note here. So I'll post the expedition video and the link to the PDF. So in the video, I talk about the different categories in expedition, and then there's a PDF which talks about type of cabins, which costs coming in, and so on. So yes, and I will leave that, maybe make 5-10 minutes after this, and I will put that in the notes, so you can be able to look at that afterwards. So Lou has been on the train ride, so that's good to know. Eric, I've asked this a couple of times. I haven't, to be honest, I haven't done a lot of research on Eclipse cruises, but I will answer this sort of. So I haven't seen any river cruises. Now, doesn't mean there aren't, but I'm not sure if there's any river cruises covering that territory. So if there are some, I haven't picked that up. But I haven't done a lot of research. The one thing I would say, Eric, is that Eclipse cruises, both the one that happened, was it last year, sold out crazy prices. The ones that are operating for the 26th, you're going to probably also be challenged in some ways to find capacity because they are booked up. I saw someone this week announce an additional cruise, and I can't remember if it was Hannah America or something like that. So I don't have any specific recommendations, I'm afraid, other than move fast would be my tip. But I've seen all of the major lines, so probably a lot of it hinges around what your if you have a particular preference in terms of lines. I would say if I was going to do an Eclipse cruise, which I haven't planned to do, I would focus on some of those smaller lines. So like something like, and ones which are very good on enrichment. So something like a Viking, for example, they will have loads of people on with huge amount of information. But if you go on a Cunard as well, it's obviously way more affordable because you have everything from insights through suites, and just generally they're a low price tier. They will also have loads of enrichment on probably an Oceania or even some of those expeditions. So I know Cunard, for example, have some going, and I think Silversea have some, but I can't remember if it's on the classic routes. So I sort of haven't really answered that terribly well. Sorry about that. But book early. SL, how far in advance would you expect to see cruise line excursions shown as bookable? Now, this varies enormously based on the cruise line. So the answer is it depends on the cruise line. So, for example, those that release them will normally tell you. So if I think around, Viking and Regent and so on, those lines are more up, and they will normally launch them about anything from 12 to 6 months before the cruise. So quite a long time ahead. If you look at many of the lines like Princess, Hannah America, Celebrity, they're normally at least a year ahead. So, for example, I booked for my group cruise, and also I've got a cruise, Hannah America group cruise in February, and then I'm actually going in March for a month, Hannah America around South America, and 3/4 of the way around South America. And those excursions were pretty much available when I booked, which was a good 14 months before. So some of those where the cruise lines are going to, on and on. Now, what's really important though is they've added some new excursions, probably about 6 months or so before. Now, Silversea tend to, when you book, you can go in and book your excursions because they do have included whatever. So they are well over a year. But you're normally going to see probably at least a year ahead normally. But that's so normally what I do is when I book, it'll tell you normally. Not all lines do. So I know when I went on my last Celebrity cruise, they didn't tell you a date. But normally once you've booked your cruise, if you go into online, they normally tell you the date when excursions will come on sale, if they're not on sale, but also they will tell you when dining is open as well, which is the other thing to think about. Let's have a look. the JM129. Which luxury line would be the best for someone who never tried a luxury line? Other than Itinerary, which lines are the best at food, pricing, and service? So JM, there's sort of two categories. So I'll talk a little bit about both. But I'm guessing if you're moving, say, from a premium line or the kind of mainstream lines, whether they're Royal Caribbean or Norwegian or Carnival, or you're looking to move from a Princess, Holland America, etc. So the first sort of step is to go small ship luxury category. So these ships will have sort of up to about 1,000 passengers. Some of them go a little bit over, like 1,200, but sort of around about 1,000. Some will be much less. And those lines include Viking, I mentioned earlier, which is for 18 over, Oceania, which is very big in this space, Windstar, which has much smaller ships, Oceania, which has ships around 700, much older ships. So you'll have those. Now, Explorer Journeys, I see as being in that category. They have ships of about, think about just over 1,000, 1,000 something. They see themselves as being more in the next category, which is ultra luxury. So ultra luxury has way more inclusions, tend to be all suite based, so a much higher entry price, for example. And that's where you've got your Seabourn, Crystal, Regent 7C, those sort of lines. It does say Silver Sea in there. So the best step, I think, would be, if you're coming from one of the other ships, is to look at something in like Viking, if that appeals to you as an adult only. They don't have a casino, but they're very beautiful ships. All the ships are the same. They are very, very good on enrichment. Food is pretty good. They don't have a casino. Entertainment's okay, not brilliant. So if the food is fine. Pricing, they're a little bit pricey. Service is good. Now, all of these have good service. Now, the line that would argue that they're the best at these is Oceania, which is one of my favorites. They are currently getting rid of their smaller R-class ships as they get into their bigger ships or newer ships. So certainly the things like Riviera, which I'm doing in December, Marina, which I've done before, and they've got Vista, and they've got Allura coming, and they've got even a next generation coming. I would look at that because they do position themselves as having the best cuisine at sea. I'm not sure that's true, and they set themselves a bit fairly, but they have huge, big menus. They have really good, on those ships, they have 5 or 6 special dining, which are included in the fare. But they do things like excursions, gratuities, drinks packages, kind of extra, because they keep changing their policy. But that's one I would look at, because it's a bigger ship, has a casino, has more choice and stuff. Now, obviously, you want to go the next level up. It's a bit more expensive. For me, Oceania is a good kind of way to go, because also, if you go way more with all inclusions, it's quite a big leap up in price, and sort of smaller ships. So that would be mine. So someone just left. Let me just have a look, because that popped up on my thing here. Maggie, the substitute teacher, left a super chat. No question, just showing support. I've watched you quietly for years. Thank you. Well, that's very kind of you. Thank you very much, Maggie. Very kind. NJ Kathy saying your mic is weak today. So let me have a look what's happening. If I've got, that's strange. It's saying it's the same settings as usual. So maybe I'm talking too quietly. I'll try and let me know if anyone else is suffering from that. So someone's saying Azamara Peter have better price. Azamara do have better pricing. Yes, and if you like the small R-class ships, they definitely work. Small R-class ships, these which, as I mentioned, Oceania getting rid of, very small bathrooms, so just watch out for that as well. Let's have a look. Claudia, I will be in Hong Kong 4 nights post-cruise in December. Know you love Hong Kong and Regent. Have booking holiday and also IHG property in Tsum Mai Tsai area, Splash Regent. I mean, Regent is great. I really like the hotel. The view was spectacular. It was a great location, but it is very expensive. So I did look. There is an Intercontinental a bit further on, but it's an iconic stay if you've got the budget. I would do Regent because you're within walking distance of the Star Ferry, which is great to nip across. It's not that long a walk. It is a bit of a walk to get to the metro. You sort of go under and walk for ages under, but it's quite convenient. It's a very good line. I mean, I really liked it. The rooms are beautiful. It's very expensive. But I did like it. I thought it was a great location, and of course you're looking across there. I didn't look at the Holiday Inn, so I didn't do much research on that. But it's great. I really liked it. They have an incredible afternoon tea. It's quite pricey, but they had a really good afternoon tea. Square Bay asked me if I've tried Ambassador. I have not tried Ambassador yet. Many people have and liked it. I haven't found a way of slotting into my schedule yet. Just have a look. Just a reminder, write the word question if you can, so I don't miss you. Michael, little emojis. What would be a great cruise for disabled seniors to take? Michael, I guess you're talking line, but maybe I'll talk destination as well. But I would take a look at a Holland America and Cunard. There are two lines, the two oldest established lines, but they have a pretty good history and experience of dealing with and catering for disabled seniors. The thing I would say, and also the program is more targeted to that. I think you'll find more that resonates in terms of entertainment and that sort of stuff. But to get a cabin, accessible cabins are in very high demand. So you need to plan way ahead if you're going to get a cabin. So that's one thing I would say. But in reality, Michael, all of those lines deal with them well, but you'll find everything from Royal Caribbean, Norwegian, they all deal with very well. But certainly from a program perspective, my list would be Holland America, Cunard, and probably Princess you could add on there as well, and particularly some of their mid-sized to smaller ships. So I'm guessing that's what you're asking in terms of a cruise. And if it's about a cruise, the advantage also with those is a lot of them will have tours in most ports which deal with people with accessibility needs, or they have a lot of panoramic tours, so they're kind of bus based, so you don't have to do lots of walking and stuff like that as well. PP, if you know insurance, so you with insurance, you're absolutely right. You can't, if you have to go to the medical center, you have to pay the bill. So I've seen people have had to pay bills of $7,000 on board, for example. Also, that's why it's really important to have the cruise cover. If you do need to get medevaced, for example, then you would contact your insurer, who would then get involved at that stage. But they won't. You'd have to claim back that sort of stuff. But once you get to a medevac situation, you'd need to contact your insurer, because they would also have to sign off on it and approve it. But that would be the key. But the actual bill, you do have to claim it back. But medevac, you would give if you're racking up a big bill, I would contact the insurer anyway through the helpline, which are 24 hours. But medevac definitely, and probably at that stage, in fact, the medical center will ask for those details as well, is my understanding. Good to hear some more love for the travel agents I recommend. John saying Gary Pluck's been great, which is good. And let's have a look. Claudia, another question from Claudia. For a new to cruise person, what's best to take them on Alaska or the Mediterranean? No Caribbean for wow and ease. Depends on the person, perhaps, and time, and long versus short haul. Both of those are great. I mean, if you've got someone North America based, taking people to Alaska, you can be pretty sure that people will enjoy Alaska, particularly if you take them on one of the classic Inside Passage ones. So I would, if I was North America, my tendency would be to take people on an Alaska cruise. If I'm more this side of the pond, as it were, I would focus more on the Mediterranean. But again, the thing with the Mediterranean is, on the Western Mediterranean, which is what I would tend to lean towards, is, those are quite grueling in a way, because a lot of the ports you're going to go to are a long way from where you want to go. So, you're going to be at Livorno, or you're going to be at La Spezia, but you're going to have like an hour and a half, like a 7, 8, 9 hour excursion to go to Florence. If you're going into Civitavecchia, again, it's an hour or something to Rome. It's a much more active kind of excursion, but definitely, from an immersion of culture and stuff. So a lot of it, I think, will depend on kind of what turns on. But Alaska is much simpler, much easier. Sites are there, excursions are there, and so on. So that would be That would be my tendency. But for a first time, of course, taking them all across to Alaska from Europe across is obviously way, maybe way more kind of challenging. Steinwald, Matt Chen, any good expedition specialist travel agent other than Polar Routes, thinking of traveling solo on Hurtigruten, or no, they're called H expeditions, aren't they? To Antarctica near New Year, in alternatives at similar price points. I don't know of any others. I'm sure there are many others. I only know of Polar Routes in the UK, although they do also take bookings for people in the US. I'm not sure where you're based actually, but I don't know anyone of that. But I do know that they have a US number if that helps. If you're US based, so I don't know of anyone other, and I haven't explored anyone else. But if anyone does other people, then definitely add that in. Okay, so this is probably an impossible question to answer, but I'll try. So Duck Cruiser, I'm guessing that you're a fan of the hiding and collecting ducks on ships. I've heard a lot of different things about a Queen Mary 2 voyage. I'm wondering if it's for us. I've heard some people love it and some people don't. Any way to know if it's for you or not? Okay, so when I first saw that, I thought you were maybe talking about the transatlantic, but I think you're probably talking about anything. So let's talk about a more general perspective. So the key thing with the Queen Mary 2 is, if you want to go on a Cunard cruise, I think you need to be someone who's looking for a fairly traditional and fairly formal cruise experience, and someone who's very interested in enrichment, because what Cunard offers is, first of all, a very British experience. So you're not going to get an American experience. You're going to get a more British experience. So a lot of the entertainers will be British, telling British joke kind of things that may resonate with Brits. Obviously, in the transatlantic, they know it's more of a US audience, for example. Everything from the spellings, everything will be, so it'll be a British experience. The senior crew, the cruise director, and so on will be British. And a lot of Brits on board. The transatlantic, more mixed. Secondly, it is the most formal of all of the lines. So they still do have, well, it's a dramatically relaxed dress code from before. Before you even have casual nights was a jacket. Now you can wear, just collared shirts, polo shirts, and slacks, whatever. On formal nights, though, most people will be dressed up. And they do, enforce it. It's not a voluntary formal night like most other lines have. So if you're going to any of the main restaurants or some of the key areas like the theatre, you're expected, if you're a gent, to wear at least a jacket and tie, or a tuxedo, which most people will be wearing. Ladies, kind of glamorous gowns, and they will enforce that. They will not. I was on Princess recently. On sort of formal night, you could go in with shorts or jeans. Just kind of voluntary thing. They will enforce that, and they will then have. They will have ballroom dancing will be a big focus with a big band. So if that's something that, and you can guarantee that there will be dancing every night, quite a few sessions with the big band, and then they will have up to 4 enrichment speakers. So it's that sense of what it is. If that's what you're looking for, then that will resonate. So if those things go, love it, love it, love it, love it, love it, love it, then definitely give it a go, because the ship is very unique. It's very different to it. The layout is a bit strange because it's designed for transatlantic, so you have more stuff more in the center that you expect to normally when you should see at the back, that kind of stuff. So that would be some of the bits and pieces there. So a few other people have dropped in by the looks of it, little super chat things, which are very kind. Howard and Keith, very kind of you as well, and Roxy Jakobsen, that's correct pronounced as well. So thank you very much for that as well. Very kind of you. So let's have a look. Later with that is I'm now lost, and I keep losing my space, my place. So Claudia making note around the. So Jeff is here from Ohio, which is great to see. Thank you very much for joining. So I just wanted to check if I. Yeah, here we go. Sorry, and I think Lou, the point is that one of the things to understand is on Queen Mary 2 is designed for the North Atlantic. So if you're doing a transatlantic, it is the most stable of any ship you can go on doing that. But as you said, take something. What did you think about the Poop Cruise documentary on Netflix? Because to be honest with you, I haven't watched it, partly because I know a lot about it from the time it happened and subsequently, and I've even covered it in some of the videos I've done. So I didn't actually watch it because I probably should do, because I feel I know the story, I know kind of what happened and stuff. I've seen a lot of the footage elsewhere and stuff. I probably should watch it. I should do my research, I guess, and watch it. So I will watch it at some point. So I haven't watched it. I think what we've seen, I think the point Carnival, they didn't include, I know they didn't include much commentary from Carnival, because Carnival issued some statements afterwards, which is the point that there was absolutely some mistakes learned, some technical issues, and they have made adjustments. For example, there was Viking had an issue with Viking Sky around about the same time-ish, where they lost power as well, and eventually people were helicoptered off. The ship was in a storm, kind of bouncing around and drifting. And what they had discovered, it was actually a technical issue. It was an oil, to do with oil levels. So I think a lot of learnings have been put in place. And certainly, when lines have lost power before, there seem to have been quicker recovery. I guess you can never say never, I guess, but I feel like a lot's been learned. But I haven't dived into a lot around what they've been done, what the mitigations. Backup power and stuff. It's interesting with backup power systems. When we were on Sun Princess, they were switching over in one of the ports to, was it Sky Princess? Because I did the two together. I can't remember which one it was now. I think it was actually Sky Princess, because I think we were actually one of the Scandinavian ports, and they were looking to plug in shoreside, and the ship lost power a couple of times because it wasn't kind of kicking in. But the backup systems kicked in very quickly. So I don't know that I really answered that, but hopefully that did answer. Let's have a. Actually, Messenger Mike speaking. Good point. Whenever I want to know anything about anything, how it is, I do go on YouTube and have a look, which is interesting. Lou making the point, following up on the point that edge food is generally better. Explorer has more dining options than Viking. Yes, it does. That's true. So Lou is doing an Antarctic trip, which is great. Sambal Machin, I haven't been on the Veer, but I would say the Blue Train and Rovos are in another league. These are very upmarket, very premium, very luxurious trains. Specifically designed. That I've watched videos of the Veer is more standard, if you like. Blue Train and Rovos are in another league, with silver service kind of dining and really kind of up there. GAN is kind of the next level below, again with very kind of pretty plush accommodations. So I would sort of see the ranking. You've got your Blue Train, your Rovos, some of those very upmarket trains. The GAN kind of close to that sort of 4-star-ish, and then Veer underneath it. But I haven't cruised yet. That's only based on following people who have, because I do love watching train videos. Let's have a look. Randy, Cunard, I put Cunard in a higher class luxe version premium than the other queens. I don't really, to be honest, but I know why people feel it's there. It's because it's so unique. For me, it's not. It's a very nice ship within the premium category, but it's probably, because it's such a different experience. I can see why they would like to also see it as a little bit higher. I think Cunard see themselves as being a little bit more luxurious than they are, and certainly versus the competition are. So I don't. They are it is a very unique ship. But I'm not sure. I think if you go in the grills, the food in the grills is good across the board. We had equivalent food in Queen Anne as we had on Victoria, as we had on Queen Mary 2. So I'm not, but I can see why people do if that's watch. Interesting. People talking, Messenger Mike talking about using Chat GPT and AI to do some short schedules. That's going to be quite interesting to see how that goes. So that would be very interesting. Boca Boys, I haven't seen that, so I need to have a look at that, but I'm not surprised about that. So what are your thoughts on the recent Bloomberg article citing the financial issues surrounding Ritz-Carlton yachts? So I just want to make a note. I haven't seen this one, so I'm going to follow through on that. Selling 50% capacity, is the hyper luxury market saturated? So I haven't seen that article. I'll follow up. First of all, I'm not surprised that many of them are struggling, because I think the model is kind of really interesting. Also, they are incredibly expensive. So if you look at someone like me that probably spends way more than I should on cruising. For me, Ritz-Carlton was just a price too far. And I think you boys have been on Ritz-Carlton. I think you might have been on, I can't remember. To me, it's just a price too far, and also with some of the extra on costs. And they also seem to have gone very much after from the Ritz-Carlton side. So I've met people who've been on Ritz-Carlton ships coming from the cruising side, and they said most people they met was from the hotel side. So I don't know that they've really understood or gone after the cruising people as much. I think what's going to be very interesting is Four Seasons. Now, I don't know if they've changed their model, but the Four Seasons model, I think we've spoken about this before here because you asked the question, I seem to remember, is doing it very much almost as a hotel approach, where they are looking to pretty much charge for everything, including dining and stuff. They may change that. I think also what's very interesting with these launches is what I hadn't really appreciated until I dived into ownership is these are, as you probably know, are largely licensing agreements. So where the Ritz-Carlton's giving their name and marketing stuff. Now, to your point about, so I think they struggle a bit with what they are, what they aren't. And also, obviously the operating costs of those are enormous because they have very small amounts. I think that sort of yacht area feels a little bit overdone, to your point, because I think they are a little bit more limited in where they can go. The itineraries are pretty, and I'm trying to think of the right word, uninspiring, I was almost going to say, but they're not very unique and interesting and quirky. They pretty much sail the Mediterranean and the Caribbean. They haven't used the yachts to go into really interesting different places. So that feels like, when I look at it, like I would literally only go to the Caribbean on a Ritz-Carlton yacht because I want to review it for the channel rather than I would want to go. So I feel like they're aiming at a category which is almost not there, if you know what I mean. So I think you've got Orient coming, you've got Four Seasons coming, so I feel it's a little bit overdone. But I will read that article. So I'm quite interested because you're right. Many of these lines are owned by either venture capital, or in the case of Four Seasons, owned by a property developer who's putting the money in and stuff like that. So thanks for that. Thanks for that head up. Definitely interesting to see how that goes. And Lou making that point. Cruise for everyone. What do you recommend out of the mainstream lines for Icelandic accent? That means Icelandic island venture. So in terms of the mainstream line, I think it's probably a terminology thing. So I think I know what you're asking, but let me just define it. So mainstream lines are sort of the big resort lines. So you're talking Royal Caribbean, Norwegian, MSC, and Carnival, of course. Then you've got the premium category, which is Princess, Holland America, Virgin, Cunard, etc. Then you have the luxury and so on. So if you mean the mainstream lines, Royal Caribbean, Norwegian, etc., very few of them actually do an Icelandic trip. So you're actually limited by what they do, and some of them will use the smaller lines. So I would say if you're going to Iceland, it obviously depends a lot on budget. I would try and go up as high up as you can to some of the smaller ships. So if your budget can stretch as far as, say, like a Viking or an Oceania kind of experience, those are a little bit smaller ships that will call in more places because some of them have restrictions. If you were here earlier talking about restrictions, is a Fjorda, for example, restricted the size and number of passengers you can go. So it excludes a lot of ships for a start. So if you can go on smaller ships, even if you go up to like Nifas do it, but some of the smaller Oceania ships or the leaving service may go up there. So I would try and go, if you can go there. If you don't have budget and you have a look at it, Celebrity, for example, they go with some of the Silhouette, for example, but you want to try and go as the smallest ship that you possibly can. So I'm trying to remember if Princess do it. I haven't seen Princess itineraries, but I would take a look at what the smallest Princess ship going, the smallest Holland America ship going. Those are they're more mainstream, but they're more premium for that. But if you can possibly go to a smaller ship, that would be the best. Hopefully that answers your question. Rhonda asking the question, do you think it's worth upgrading from the entry-level cabin on Explorer to a penthouse? Is it worth it? So I'm trying to remember, Rhonda, the differences in perks between the two, because you still are limited theoretically in the amount of times you can go to the to the restaurants, for example, and then they don't seem to have a status thing linked to that. I mean, the penthouse is very beautiful. They're a great size. Now, we did look actually, although I might not be able to do that now, but Mark and I booked a transatlantic, and we actually booked a penthouse, partly because they had a good deal on. They were doing a really, really good deal. But we thought for a long trip with lots of sea days, it'd be nice to have a bigger cabin. I think it's, if you've got the money and you want the bigger cabin, the penthouses are very beautiful cabins. But I don't feel look at those ships because the perks are not so different from what I can remember at all. I think there might be some laundry. There's a laundry, but I feel like there's only one bag of laundry and a minibar setup or something. So because so much more is included, I wouldn't, unless if you've got the money in the budget. Of course, going big is always great. They were very beautiful cabins indeed. Let's have a look. I want to make sure I get out of. Oh, here we go. Rosemary is here. Good to see you here, Rosemary. Answering the question because I knew Rosemary has done a lot of work on Eclipse. So the person who's asking about Eclipse, Quark and Aurora is sailing to East Greenland. Eclipse is the longest time, but light and more cloudy. So thanks very much for that, Rosemary. And I did send you a reply to your query that you sent me. So hopefully you got that today. And Rosemary adding to that, I see the Eclipse from Spain, but shorter length. So thanks so much for that, for adding that in. Oceania has also panoramic excursions. That's a good point. Many of the lines have panoramic ones, so that's a good point. John asking the question, which cruise line, in your opinion, has the best itinerary for Australia/New Zealand, plus the GAN train, and another for the East Coast of Africa from South Africa? So I haven't seen, there may well be, but I haven't seen any lines offering a package bundling the two as such. So in terms of the itinerary for Australia and New Zealand, a lot of it hinges around how much time you've got and your budget, of course, and what experience you want. So there is an incredible itinerary, which of course is very expensive, coming from Seabourn as part of their 2027 World Cruise, where they start in Auckland and they do a lot of New Zealand, they do a lot of Australia, according to lots and lots of ports. I think it's an overnight in Sydney. That's obviously right in sort of the beginning of 2027. Now, there's a couple of the lines do some very nice circumnavigations. Unfortunately, Viking aren't doing it. They're doing it in 26, but they aren't doing it in 27 because I was looking at 27. Holland America has a very nice circumnavigation. Princess used to have one, but I haven't seen it recently. So if you want to do a whole circumnavigation, that's great. But the advantage is quite a few lines are based there. Now, if you want to go a little bit more, if you don't go to like the budget of a Viking, whatever, Celebrity are running using Celebrity Edge some very nice itineraries, which do go up the East Coast, and they go around to Australia, to Auckland, kind of back, and with quite a lot of stops. Obviously, there's kind of bigger ships. Oceania has some quite nice itineraries using Riviera, where they do some to New Zealand. They then do some which go round, so they go right around the top to Perth. Then they have a second cruise which goes around the bottom, the southern part, and onto New Zealand. And I was looking at that, those itineraries. So they have Riviera down there. Then they do what we're doing in December. When they finish the season, they go across from Sydney to Papeete. Then they go from Papeete up to Alaska to the Alaska season. In terms of the GAN train, you'll need to do that separately. Now, the point with the GAN goes between Darwin and Adelaide. So most of the cruises are going to go from Sydney. So you're going to have to then, go to either Darwin or whatever. Now, in terms of the East Coast of Africa, so there's fewer, there's less kind of ports. There's few places because most ships. I'm doing a West Africa trip, and quite a few lines will do West Africa with varying degrees of intensity as they move the ships down. East Coast, most lines will do a little bit of South Africa. They might do Mozambique, but they then tend to head across to Mauritius, to either to the Seychelles or onto the Maldives, and then they sort of head and do their Asia trips. And there's quite a few lines do that. You'll find everything from some Holland America sometimes do that, but again, depending on budget, region, Oceania do some very nice itineraries down there. So hopefully that helps. Let's have a look. We're running out of time. Let me desperately try and see if I can I'll try and do some quick ones. Anne, what do you recommend for Holland America Alaska cruise with regard to Denali? Number of days for Denali. They tend to sell packages, so I would literally go with the packages. I think they do a 7+4, 7+3, if I remember correctly. So they'll do an inside passage with a 3 or 4 day. So I would kind of go with that. I mean, you lose kind of a day on the train getting there, so it's quite a long trip. So I would just look at the length of train. So I would tend to go, if you've got the time, go for the slightly longer one because you have more time actually there. Would be, well, they're saying 2 days, but the point is that look at how long you've got on the train in terms of that particular port. Lynn making the point, which is a good one, about the question earlier, which I think is a good point I should have mentioned, was disabled travelers to stay with tender ports. So when you're looking at itineraries, good point. Tender ports are really troubling. Diabetic on questions. Seems there is a setting that needs to be enabled to allow superjets to earn XP. How will I ever make it to number 1? Okay, I don't know what that means, but I will have a look at that. But thanks for your super chat. But you're right. I don't really look at the super chat things. Then he said he did earn XP. So the crown number is based on all costs. I need to do more research on that. Clearly, I'm not up enough with all that with the stuff in terms of those bits and pieces. So we're rapidly running out of time. So let me try and do one more question. Francis, good to see you here. Francis, what's the best cruise line for touring Norway and Iceland? Hopefully I've slightly answered the Iceland thing. When it comes to Norway, Francis, I would look at Hurtigruten and I would look at Havalia because they are the most intense. They are Norwegian based. Havalia is the new kid on the block. Hurtigruten is done for a while. They call on loads of ports. They go further north, more ports. That's the one I would absolutely focus on, without a shadow of a doubt. If you want to go more mainstream, take a look at if you want to go more like a Holland America, do some fantastic itineraries. Tend to be more out of kind of Amsterdam and so on. So I've churned through time. Thanks so much for the fantastic questions. As I mentioned, I will aim to do a live stream next week from Amsterdam, a day or two before I get on. I will post about that with the links as usual. I will leave that note, as I said, for the expedition stuff. Have a fabulous rest of your weekend. I really appreciate you joining and the fantastic questions in the super chats. So have a great rest of the weekend, which I guess I should have said happy Independence Weekend for those in the US. Take care. Bye.